Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Angles and Attitudes. I am here with the legend of Chicago, the legend of Taylor Street, my good friend Luke Capuano. This will be a great interview here on Angles and Attitude. My partner Mark Cezurek is not on this afternoon, but this is something for me that I've waited for a long time, and to finally talk to Luke about one of the greatest Chicago boxers here that ever came out of that area. Luke, good afternoon and welcome to Angles and Attitude. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
How does it start for you in the sense of boxing? Like, somebody asked me today, well, how did you start hockey? Because I was a hockey player my whole life. How does it start for you? What was that age when you said, hey, I want to do this? This is something that I think I like. Was it the thing from the neighborhood, or what was it?
Actually, it was when I was about 12 years old. A couple of older guys grabbed me and washed my face with a watermelon.
Oh.
And I went home, and my father says it's time that you learn how to defend yourself a little bit, and my dad was a boxer in the army, and
Okay.
he knew a little bit about the art of self-defense, and we started fooling around in the house a little bit, moving a couch or a chair and making a little phony ring, and we had gloves, and he started teaching me there.
Oh, wow. So it takes something like that to, what's the word I want to use? It's the wake-up call.
Yeah, right,
Exactly. You don't want to be facing the like the neighborhood thug or the guy who's going to dominate you. I always have a saying, Luke, you don't intimidate the intimidator.
Right, so. Exactly. I think almost every man that has a child that's a boy, they have that in the back of their head. They want that kid to be able to defend themselves.
Sure.
And especially growing up in the neighborhood where I grew up. Taylor Street. Everybody was a tough guy.
Sure. That was one of the toughest neighborhoods. I remember, because I was from the Northwest Side, and I remember when somebody would say to me, hey, you want to go down to Taylor Street? I says, are we prepared to go down to Taylor Street? No. But that's a great analogy. Like, you brought up your father, you come home. We've all had the episode of, getting our butt kicked or something at one time or another.
Right.
Who notices you then as you proceed to, really get the passion for this sport?
Well, you know what? It was my dad. I got in a couple of tournaments. He says, you're pretty good, this and that. He says, why don't you? There's boxing in school? I says, well, I went to Gordon Tech, and there was intramural boxing. And he said, why don't you box in school? So more so to please him than myself. I said, all right. So I lost my first fight. I chased the guy all over the mat. It was on mats.
But this was like an intramural thing.
It was an intramural,
Got
right?
It.
And I came home. He said, how'd you do? I said, well, I lost. He said, well, how'd you lose? I said, Dad, I chased the guy all over, and he hit me once or twice, and I couldn't hit him. He said, I'm surprised. I really am. He said, forget about it. But we still fooled around our house, and
sure.
I got a little sharper and sharper. And then the second year of school, I joined intramurals again, and I won. I won the title.
Wow.
And
you're at Gordon Tech.
At Gordon Tech, yeah. I was just 15 years old.
Right.
And he said, why don't you get in the CYO tournament? And I'm playing ball and doing this,
And Luke, what years was this? I mean, like when we're talking CYO.
It was like 60, 68.
Okay. Late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, 68, 69.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would tell you if you're fighting this day or that day, it depends on how many guys join the tournament. Sometimes you get a bye, sometimes you had to fight twice in one night, you know,
Got it.
and whatever. And I wind up winning the CYO novice light heavyweight championship, you know, and I didn't think nothing of it. Just, you know,
Sure.
it was part of just being a kid, growing up, you know. But it was more so my father's curiosity to see what I could do.
Right,
you
right.
know.
Sure.
He was competitive in his own ways, but he wasn't he wasn't a tough guy.
Right.
He was a tough guy. but he
Disciplinarian
was a
type.
disciplinarian
Yeah.
type
Right.
of guy,
Right.
you know. He was well known in the neighborhood as a tough guy, but
Sure.
he was just known as a peacemaker too.
Yeah. A man. Of course, I would have loved to have met your dad. A guy like my father, not a big sport guy, discipliner, but a man. It sounds like your father was not going to take anybody's shit.
Right, you know.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, just like I say, growing up in the neighborhood, he was a Taylor Street and Halston Street guy all his life. You know, to Colvin Street. You know, and growing up in the neighborhood back then, you know, there was always what do you call it? Oh shit, I'm trying to think now. Where they used to all go, Hall House.
Okay.
Hall House, and that's where the CYO Hall House. That was a big deal for the guys, you know, and there was a zillion of them.
Sure.
You know, you wanted to
Sure.
spar, you had 100 sparring partners. Yeah.
Where was this at? This Hall House?
Hall House was right on Halsted.
Okay, right on Halsted.
In fact, they got some kind of a building there dedicated to Jane Addams Hall House.
Okay.
By the university, Polk and Halsted.
Polk and Halsted, what an area. I mean, so you saw a lot of different individuals from.
Yeah.
I mean, there were all types there, and
Yeah.
you know, you really got to have. Tell me if I'm wrong. You got to have tough skin.
Well, you know, first of all, I think having tough skin it's a great tribute to yourself, because during school years, growing up, you're gonna get bullied, you're gonna get
Sure.
made fun out of. I wore glasses, 4 eyes, this
Right.
and that. You know
Exactly.
what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Exactly.
And you can't you can't let everything bother you.
No.
So you know, you got to learn how to give it back a little bit. You know.
Sure.
So it's a good learning process.
So you turned pro, and correct me if I'm wrong. You turned pro in '78.
77, I think. I think 77 was my first fight, or 78.
Yeah,
it was right. It's right on the border.
Yeah. Well,
Right on the board,
is
yeah.
it safe to say your first pro fight is against Bill Jackson?
Yes,
Which is at the
absolutely.
Aragon Ballroom.
Absolutely.
And I
You
think
know?
the date was 9/9 of '78.
Then that was it. Then.
Yeah, that was the first one with Jackson. But again, you know, the process, like, who notices you to say, okay, Lukey, Mr. Capuano, meaning your dad, I think Luke's ready. We'd like to manage him, and we've got something here.
Well, you know what? It was the Rocky movie, really. You know, back in '76.
I want to compare you to Chuck Wepner.
Yeah.
I do want to compare you to
Yeah.
Chuck Wepner.
When Rocky come out, you know, we had George Mastradini.
Oh,
He was
the Italian assassin.
Italian
You got
assassin.
it.
You know, he perked up a lot of people. You know, God bless him. You know, and Rocky DeFazio back in the late '60s.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
he was another guy that,
Sure.
that was a tough kid, and you know, it brought out a lot of Italians out of their shell, and you know,
Yeah.
started fighting and stuff like that. But it was more of trying to emulate them, you know, try to
Sure,
be part
sure.
of them, you know.
Without a doubt.
I
What
like
do you-
that word, emulate. Was it?
That's
word?
good. I like that. I like that. And like I said, we're live. That phone rings. Whatever happens, don't worry. What do you remember most about that first fight with Jackson? What do you remember? There's my stupid question.
No, you know.
Were you nervous?
Absolutely, you know. Absolutely, you know. I think anytime first of all, anytime you fight in front of any kind of crowd, or you have any kind of fight, you're nervous. Any kind of confrontation, you're going to be nervous.
You're nervous, right?
So
right.
Absolutely, the first fight, and he was a big boy. He was a big guy, and
Older or younger than you at that time?
I don't know how
Yeah.
old he was, but
Chicago guy.
you know what? I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
John, you never.
Yeah, you never knew.
You're very seldom.
It's not like now where you could go in the ring and Google a guy.
Right, he's an opponent,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Exactly.
And you're nervous. Everybody's nervous.
Sure.
And hopefully you could do good in front of your friends and family, and and the rest is history.
I got a question for you as we're going to go forward. Because I remember it was like fights were at the Aragon, the Park West, DePaul Alumni Hall, even the Conrad Hilton. There were boxing matches. I think your first 13, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the first 13 fights you had, you won by knockout.
I don't know for sure. I'd be lying.
Yeah.
But I might have been like maybe 12-0 or
12-0 at that time,
something like that.
So there's rumblings.
There's
rumblings, meaning, okay, we got this guy Capuano. When I say rumblings, they're good rumblings.
Absolutely.
Okay, this guy Capuano's knocked out whatever the figure is, 12 or 13. Does it get into the ear of your trainer, your manager? Hey, Luke, you're making some strides here. We're going to be getting some calls from different places now.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's what they do. They set you up with an opponent that more experienced.
Sure.
Maybe seen his better days, but he's been around, and if you could get by him, you're ready for another step up. And that's what they do. They give you opponents that they believe you could beat, but it's going to be a testy fight.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's your stepping stone.
In those, let's say, first 12, 13 fights, did you say to yourself, hey, I got this? I mean, your confidence is building, right? I mean, we've interviewed Ray Mancini. And Ray Mancini told me that he fought Macho Camacho. He'd come out of retirement. It was a personal thing with Camacho. He should have never fought him, he said in our interview, because he says, I fought him because of ego. I should have left my ego at the door.
Right.
But now you're building confidence.
Right.
You're training very hard to get this done. What was going through your mind when you knew you had the 13 fights and you're like, okay, I'm going to be seeing some different opponents?
Well, you know what? It was a learning process where not only I started out as a heavyweight. I started losing weight. I was 225, 230 when I started working out. I think my first pro fight I was about 220, 215, and then gradually it just kept on getting lower and lower. So now, instead of fighting bigger guys, I'm fighting guys that are in good shape, 175 pounds, that are as quick as I am.
All different styles.
And it's a different ball game.
Sure.
Now you're fighting better caliber fighters.
And you could see it as you were going up the map, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. They're getting guys that
I mean, there's some great names on here. I mean, you fought Lee Berkey, you fought Adolfo Rivas, Juan de la Garza, Jimmy Hearn, Phil Wade, George Gorfath, Donnie Masterton.
Yeah.
I mean, these were some. I mean, they were no.
They were guys that they were making a name for themselves at the time. And like I say, it was a stepping stone for both of us.
And here's the beauty of it. And, tell me if I'm wrong, because me and you are kind of cut from the same cloth, meaning in the sense of how we grew up. There was no YouTube or Google to watch Rivas. Rivas fought this guy. You went in there, you made it heard, okay, this guy doesn't move too well, he leads with his right, he leads with his left, but that's all maybe that you came into the ring. You trained.
Yeah, right. Our team, my manager, my trainer, this and that, nobody knew hardly anything about your opponent, except when I fought Rossman, that was the only thing we really knew that he was, you know, he was there. He was a guy that was a caliber champ of the world.
Caliber champ, right? And we'll get to him, of course. Those two great fights that you had with Mike Rossman. Tell us a little bit about your trainer, manager, Blackie Pasoli. Of course, I knew his son Dominic, and of course Primo Lacasa. What can you tell me about them?
Well, you know, we were a team that was basically guinea pigs almost. We were new to the game. All three of us were new to the game. I mean, Primo was a great fighter back in the late 40s, early 50s. He was a contender. He was a lightweight that was right up there. He had some battles with a neighborhood guy, Tony Spano, and he knew the game inside out. In fact, all of the Casa boys, Patty, Jimmy, and Primo, you know, they were trainers in their own right. And Blackie, you know, he knew people. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
He knew people, you know,
to
get my feet wet here and there.
Did you ever think, okay, because me as a hockey coach, I had parents that would tell me, well, I don't know if you're the right coach for my son. So the question I have for you now is, did you feel in your heart that a Blackie Pasoli and a Primo Lacasa were the right guys for you coming up this career?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, absolutely. Especially my trainer, especially Primo. You know, Primo. I'm going to tell you something. Here's a guy that when I was fighting Mike Rossman for the second time or the first time, I can't really remember. They wanted to get a different trainer. And I says, you got to be kidding me. I says, you know, we come this far.
We've got this far.
This man. He says, Luke, do what you do. You know, this guy could help you out. Sid Martin was his name. You know, he was a renowned trainer too. He could help you out more than I says, we started together. We died together. What's wrong with you? You know?
What a beautiful thing by you.
What a beautiful thing by him.
Yeah, too.
You know?
Sure.
And
it showed that he cared about you. You know, that
absolutely.
he wanted you to, you know,
absolutely.
He wanted to take you that next step.
But you know what happens? It screws up your mind.
Oh, sure.
You know, in here,
without a doubt.
In here, you want somebody else, and these guys are looking on the outside, saying this is better for you. I know what's good for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it kind of reminds you of the movie Rocky when, you know, Rocky loved Mick. I mean,
right,
you know that.
exactly.
So you bring up a thing that maybe it's a thing from the movies, but
no, it's the truth.
It was in his heart.
It was in his heart.
And he didn't want to learn from Apollo Creed. He wanted to learn from
right. You know.
Well, I'm going to take you to a time that I remember very well. And before we get to the Rossman fight, before we came on today on the camera here, you had told me that, you know, we were talking about boxers like Jake LaMotta, Carmen Basilio. You had 3 fights at one time. You fought a guy in February of '79 named Troy Bolden at the Aragon. Then you fought a guy in between that in a 4-round exhibition who everybody knows named Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay on February 28th of '79 at DePaul Alumni Hall, and we'll go to that. And then, of course, on March 31st of that same year in '79, you fought Baker Tinsley. Let's go to the Ali fight, because I'm sure that Bolden knew you were going to fight Ali in an exhibition. So that had to be intimidating in his mind already. Wait a minute. They picked Luke Capuano to go. It was an exhibition. I get it. I remember the fight very well. There were, what do you call the things?
Headgears.
The headgears were on. I remember the fight very well.
16-ounce gloves, bigger gloves.
Yes, yeah. And you could find all 4 rounds of that fight on YouTube if anybody wanted to watch it. But I have to ask you, because I was not a big Ali fan, so, you know, this kid from Norwich who was going down to UIC playing hockey, knowing that I didn't know Luke Capuano, even though it was an exhibition, I wanted you to kind of get in this guy's ear. I was a big Joe Frazier guy, so when I heard you were fighting Ali, did Ali even start his way of things, even though it was an exhibition? Would he come up to, did he taunt you before that fight? Is what I'm trying to...
Absolutely. You know, I was in the locker room, and you're going through your game plan and stuff like that. You know, you're talking to your trainer, and all of a sudden, who's that white boy I'm fighting? I said, uh-oh.
Here we go.
Here we go. Who's that, what's his name? Capone,
Yeah.
And he came in, and as loud and as boisterous as he was a gentleman. He says, we're going to have a good time tonight, kid. Don't worry about nothing,
Nice.
It was a nice gesture, letting me know that he's not going to do the Muhammad Ali shuffle on my head. And
Yeah,
stuff
right.
Like that. It was nice knowing that we were going to have a little fun doing 4 rounds.
He was up in age already, of course. I mean, he was at the tail end. I think the following year he fought Holmes and lost, and that was it. I mean,
Right.
He was at the
Right.
end. He fought Larry Holmes.
Yeah.
And that was the end of his career. But I got to ask you, even in that exhibition, if you watch on YouTube, especially the 4th round, and like you said, you had the headgear on, you had the bigger gloves. Mr. Capuano and Mr. Ali were throwing some haymakers in that 4th round. I mean, I watched it and I was like, wow, But Luke, one thing I noticed about that fight, and I watched it a couple of nights ago, you went over to that corner, and I watched in all your fights that I know of, you're always that gracious guy who went to the corner, win or lose, and hugged that guy, pat it.
Absolutely.
No walking away, going back into the room.
No.
And that night I watched you, and you went right up to him, and I was like, wow, what a night it was for you, February 28th, 79.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not remembered for that. You're remembered for being the boxer that you were. I mean, you were a great Chicago boxer, but watching that, I was like, wow, this had to be probably the coolest thing in your... Was your father and mother still around at that time?
You know what? I'm going to tell you something. They worked. My mom was there. My father never came to none of my fights.
Oh, wow.
He was a nervous wreck when I fought.
Sure.
And, he'd be in his chair watching TV, smoking a cigar, and probably doing the rosary, because he was a holy guy.
Wow, I would have never expected that, because, again, not to bring up Mancini here again, Boom Boom said that his father came to all his fights and only missed one, which was Lenny Mancini, the other boxer.
Right.
So here's this guy who was showing you when you were a kid, who got the watermelon in the face.
Absolutely.
But, wow.
He never came to one. When I fought amateur, when I had those boxing matches at the Armory or St. Andrews or whatever it was, he'd drive me there, and then he'd walk around.
Wow.
The area. When I fought, he wouldn't watch.
I was not expecting that, because
he was a nervous wreck.
So he would wait for the
results.
outcome.
Yeah.
And you couldn't Google it or YouTube.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great story. But I just want you to know, I had a hockey practice that night at the UIC Pavilion. You were at the Paul Alumni Hall fighting Ali, and I said to my buddy, God, I want to go see this fight. I want to meet this Capuano guy. I hope he kicks his ass, And I knew it was an exhibition, but I was just one of these fired up guys.
I had a couple of guys. Come on, you got to get it.
You got to get a shot in for us,
Yeah, okay. I told you, this guy might get a Joe Frazier flashback, and
we don't want no thriller on Loomis Street. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go to something that's, of course, people still talk about it, and I did a little research on it. November 13th, 1980, you fight Mike Rossman.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I have to tell you, for me, and of course I mentioned a guy to you the other day, I was really into boxing. I mean, I loved boxing. I mean, from the days of Leonard and Hagler and Alexis Arguello, Mancini, all those guys. And, when you were doing it, I wanted to know the Chicago boxer. I got a chance once to meet a guy, Lenny LaPaglia. But the Rossman fight, Mike Rossman, I mean, still to this day, it's talked about. When, of course, it's mentioned you, but it's talked about. And again, believe me when I tell you, I've watched both fights on YouTube. The first one, I wouldn't want to be a judge, because we're going to talk about that, but what do you remember? I mean, okay, now this fight is at the old International Amphitheater.
Right, exactly, right.
And that's a question for you. I'll ask too a little bit later on here. What's going through your mind? You know, this is this caliber guy.
Oh yeah, right. You're fighting, Bill Jackson. You're fighting Baker Tinsley. Now you're fighting the light light heavyweight champ of the world. This guy.
And he had just lost before he fought you.
You're right. He lost. I don't know if it was Victor Galindez. He won it from Galindez and lost it back or something
right.
like that. I forget.
I can't remember myself.
But he's a world class fighter. There's no getting around it. You're stepping up from algebra.
Yeah.
To
trigonometry.
Right.
We say right. To trig, right? Yeah. By the way, I failed both. But take us through that. I mean, do you remember it? I mean,
I worked out hard, and I did this and that, and trained hard for the fight, and and you put in your head it's just another guy. I always said it's a very, very thin line between respect and fear. You have to respect him, but you can't fear him. And once the bell rings, that skepticism, that little doubt in your head's got to get out of there. It's got to fly out of your head. And you know what? We're gonna fight. We're gonna spar. We're gonna fight. We're gonna do whatever we're gonna do.
You remember any trash talking in that fight?
No, absolutely
Was it just a straightforward fight?
He was a gentleman before and after. I tell you the truth. Afterwards, I went up to him. He was kind of snobbish like, but I found out
he was an East Coast guy, right?
Yeah,
East Coast guy. Yeah.
He went to the doctor to get checked out. I went to the neighborhood tavern and got drunk.
Okay. Well, you turned out okay.
Yeah.
But it looked like it was that straightforward fight. There wasn't a lot. You see after the round, sometimes there's a little stuff going on.
No.
Were those 3-minute rounds?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every fight's a 3-minute round.
Somebody said to me once, you know what? For $1 million, I'll get in the ring with Luke Capuano. And this was years ago. Let's just say we're using you as the example.
Yeah.
And I would say, 3 minutes in a round, $1 million, 3 minutes will be like an hour for you.
Yes.
3 minutes. When you're training for 3 minutes of probably 10 to 12 rounds, correct? I mean, you are...
double, whatever you're fighting. You're fighting 10 rounds, you're training for 20. So you're doing 20 rounds a day, whatever it is. You're fighting 4-rounders, you're training for 8. So that's where it goes.
I want to tell you a little more about the first fight. There were 3 referees. Stanley Berg, Harold Marlovitz, and of course a guy by the name of Gordon Volkman. And Berg, Stanley, I think, did it 46-45, Capuano. Marlovitz, actually Volkman had it as a draw at 45-45, and I think it was Marlovitz who had it at 48-46, Rossman, if I'm correct in my figures. So it's basically he wins on a majority decision?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, a majority decision?
Yeah.
And
majority. Well, you know what? When there's one guy that says tie and 2, it's a majority.
Majority, yeah.
Right.
But I mean, Berg to this day, and I could quote Stanley on this. I haven't seen him in years. And I hope he's still around.
I think he passed.
He passed, yeah. He said, I knew Luke was a Chicago guy. Deep in my heart, I wanted Luke to beat Rossman, but I had a reputation to uphold. I mean, even though he gave you the edge in that fight, he said to this day, until his passing, the most exciting fight he had ever refereed. Did you ever, in the years of boxing, did you ever go up to a referee, or were you able to go up to a scorecard guy and say, hey, what the hell were you watching? I mean, I took that round, meaning in other fights. Were you ever like, what? How do you got me losing to so-and-so when, I threw like 25 punches at this guy in the one round alone?
Once. My last fight. I got hit in the temple.
That was the last one, right?
My last fight. I got hit in the temple.
Raymond White.
I went down, right? I got up. She said, I said, yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. He said, okay, where are you? I says, I'm in Las Vegas. Stop the fight.
And you were in Las Vegas?
No, I was in Atlantic City.
Oh yeah, like I said. Oh, so you? Sorry, yeah, you were in Atlantic City. That was in March of '83.
Yeah.
But it's just because you named the wrong state, the wrong town.
Yeah.
Because that's the only fight you really lose by a technical knockout.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a vow I made to my dad. I says, if I ever get hurt, knocked out, stopped, bad, whatever. If I get hurt, that's it for me. And
wow.
That's the story. That's the true story. All we were talking about was how different Atlantic City is from Vegas. And you know, my crew, the manager and the guys that were out there, were talking about how Vegas is like
Atlantic City.
You know, like Atlantic City.
Yeah.
But the difference was, you know.
Sure.
And then I had a late, and I said.
So that's what, just on what you said. Now, I think I would have given you the benefit of the doubt because they are two gambling cities. But
I said, what are you doing? You know.
But is that actually, and I think, okay, that's Raymond White, because you know better than, I really don't get into this internet stuff too much. Is that actually your last fight on March 6th? Of the
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say? Is Pasoli still involved with you?
Yeah.
What do you tell them? I think this is
that's it. That's it.
You knew in your heart.
Yeah. I says, you know, I said it. I said, I made a promise to my dad, and that was it.
Were you ever tempted, because it seems like the history of boxing is, you know, with any boxer, even if it was Ali or even Joe Frazier. I saw Joe Frazier come back and get his, with a guy by the name of Jumbo Cummings. I saw him over there.
Right.
Did you ever have, like, now it's 1984, 85, and you turn to Jenny and you say, hey, Jen, I'm going to fight that kid John Conenna from Norwich. You know, he thinks who he is. Did you ever have that feeling that you wanted to go back in the ring after the fight with White?
I think every fighter sees something. They think that, well, you know, I could beat that guy. I could beat this guy. I could beat, you know, and I think they're yanking it because it's a time. You know, it's your time when you're doing it. And now it's their time when they're doing it. You had your opportunity, and that's it. You know?
What a great way to put it. I mean, you know, and you know, yeah. That was one of my main things. I go, I gotta ask Lou. You know, after that fight, did you?
Well, did you ever realize the day you put your skates away that they were going to be away for the rest of their life?
Yeah. No. Right, exactly right.
You're ready for next year.
Exactly.
You're ready for next season.
Right.
When you put them away, and you say, well, we'll get them next year, you know?
Basically, yeah.
And then all of a sudden...
That 1 year, and especially in your profession, and, I mean, the boxing, and especially me, too. I mean, my brain's telling me, I'm watching the Hawks, and I'm like, man, I can do that. Then I can't even go up the stairs anymore because my knees are so shot, you know. You're honored in 2015... into the Illinois Boxing Hall of Fame. I mean, that had to be something.
Absolutely.
I mean that was something. I mean, because for anybody here in Chicago that knows about boxing, and like I said, I think you could tell I followed it.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows about boxing, that was such a deserved award. Do you remember that night?
Oh, that was big. Yeah, it was really nice because I went in with a couple of friends of mine that deserved to go in, and you know, just to be acknowledged.
Oh,
just to be acknowledged by the state. You know, it's an honor. You know.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and you know, I mean, we're talking the whole state of Illinois. I mean, and something, you know.
Yeah.
But you, and of course, I do follow you nowadays more than ever because of the fact of what you're doing there in the Italian community. I see you and your wife, and I'm pronouncing it's Jenny, right?
Right,
Jenny.
exactly.
I got a chance to meet her this year. Very nice lady, and I see how you guys are in the Italian community. And you know, I mean, I think it's safe for me to say that you are the pride of that neighborhood because I see how people react to you. And when I met you in May, after basically I felt like I knew you during the '80s and '90s and followed you. I mean, Luke, you got this heart of, it's just unbelievable. And, you're not this type of guy that comes out and says, well, yeah, I took Masterton, he was nothing. You're a very just, kind individual. And, this is
nice.
something because you were in a sport that,
Yeah, that's another thing that I think hurt me a little bit too. You have to have a kind of a killer instinct. These guys look at their opponent. They want to kill you. I want to kill
right,
you.
right.
And I don't have that. I really don't have a killer instinct. I was lucky enough to be blessed with a good punch and a pretty good jaw.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you got it's a different frame of mind.
Right.
You got to be hungry to
Did
to
you,
hurt
and I'm
somebody.
sure you saw boxers that came up to you during when the referee is going through. Okay, no rabbit punches, no this.
Yeah.
We're already just we're already talking,
Yeah.
right? We're already talking.
Right.
But I could see in just the short time that we know each other, your demeanor was one of that. I have to read you something before we close this off today.
Sure.
It's just a beautiful thing that I found, and again, it's from Stanley Berg. He says, Luke Capuano, in my opinion, owned the city during his time. He gave boxing fans of Chicago something to be proud of. And that was after the era with the Rossman fights and everybody else. When I read that, I'm getting goosebumps through the black shirt here. And this was really beautiful what he says. He gave boxing fans of Chicago to be proud of. And Luke, for me today on my program here, Angles and Attitudes with you, this is an honor for me. I want to do this again with you. We'll talk about something else. Maybe we'll talk about all the nightclubs we went to before Jenny and Gotti. I don't know what we're going to talk. By the way, how long you been married to Jenny?
I've been married there for 45 wonderful years.
Okay.
To a beautiful
Jenny, you heard that.
To a beautiful woman
Yes.
who, to this day, is.
She's a rock. I got to tell you. I see that woman for the
She
little
is-
of I know of her.
She is a tough cookie.
You're not going to get nothing by her.
No, she's
Where?
a tough cookie.
What year did you get married?
76.
76. And is Jenny from the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, this.
I love you.
Yeah, you're. Don't worry, I'm going to turn the volume up on that, Jen. Listen, Luke. I mean it, man. This was fantastic, my man.
This was nice.
This was
Nice.
fantastic. And listen, maybe when you turn.